Hey guys, so today's video I'm gonna show you how to make Narwhal Amigurumi. So this is a full tutorial, and it's been 3 years since my last full tutorial on anything, and I'm so sorry about it. I've been waiting to have a new camera for better quality tutorial. So yeah, if you watch my own tutorials, you will know that they are pretty much low quality, and I just don't feel like it's worth it to spend time and make a full tutorial and then the video quality is so bad. I personally don't like bad quality videos, and I'm sure you guys as watchers, you don't like bad quality videos as well. So I have a new camera, but this camera is not like super expensive, so it is not like HD quality videos, but I hope you are okay with the new quality, like this current quality video. Anyways, today's video I'm gonna show you how to make these two Narwhal Amigurumi. If you follow me on Instagram, you will know that I designed these Narwhal way back in 2017 or 2016, I don't remember. When I made my first few Narwhals, I made them in one color, like all one color, the entire body. But when I decided to make the tutorial, I feel like so boring, just make one colored narwhal. So I decided to change up the pattern and make the narwhals into colorful colors like you see here. So the body will have 5 different colors, and you can change the colors to whatever that you like. I made these two narwhals with the same yarn gauge, the same hook size, but for some reason this one turned out to be bigger than this one. Probably because the mint yarn is slightly thicker than the purple yarn, or maybe when I crochet the purple yarn here, I crochet it too tight or slightly tighter than when I crochet this one right here. So just to let you know that one person can crochet different sizes amigurumi. It depends on the yarn color as well. But these two were made from the same pattern, the same hook size, same yarn gauge, whatever, but different times crocheting and different strength put into crocheting will make the amigurumi size different. So I'm gonna call this Ocean Narwhal. So its name is Ocean, and this is gonna be, I don't know, sunrise. I hope you enjoy this video. I try to explain everything thoroughly. I have a series called Amigurumi 101. So if you are unclear about a certain part, or if you think that I'm going too fast, you can check out that series, because I will mention which part I have a tutorials on, so you guys can check that out. Yeah, about the pattern, about the written pattern, you can read the written pattern on my Tumblr. I have a Tumblr, you can read that, or you can download the PDF file on Ravelry and Crochet. Before going into the tutorial, I am going to say a quick disclaimer. You can make as many dolls as you want. You can sell them wherever you want, how many you want. You can even translate the pattern to whichever language that you are speaking or you want to translate to. All I ask is please give me NVkatherine the credits as the designer, because I have seen a few of my previous old free patterns being translated or being reposted on other websites, on other blogs, and I don't see my name, I don't see the credits that I deserve on my on my pattern that being reposted or being translated, and that bothers me a lot, because I work really hard to design a pattern and to give out the pattern for free, and all I ask is the credits. You can make the dolls and sell the doll, but don't sell the patterns. It's crazy when you make profits when the pattern is already available for free, you know what I'm saying? Just please give me the credits that I deserve. And yeah, no further ado, 3, 2, 1, let's begin with the tutorial. First is the materials that you need. You need some yarn in various colors because our narwhals will have 5 different colors for the body: white, pink, and black. So there will be 8 colors in total. You will also need some crochet hook. I use 3.75 mm hook because these are DK weight yarn, so I'm using 3.75 mm. But of course, if you use other yarn goat, you can use other crochet hook sizes if you are comfortable with them. So you can either use boy, which is this taper hook like this, or Susan Bates, which is inline hook like this. Whichever brand or whichever hook style is comfortable for you, you can use them. You also need some stuffing, a pair of safety eyes. So I'm gonna use 16 mm safety eyes for the narwhals. You're obviously going to need your yarn needle. You need a yarn needle that has a big eye, big enough for you to thread your yarn through this eye. And pins, a lot of pins, but I only give 2 here as examples. And a pair of scissors. That's all the materials that you need to make a narwhal, and let's just begin with the tutorial. First, start with 6 crochet in a magic ring. If you don't know how to do a magic ring, you can watch my full tutorial on how to make a magic ring in series 101. For this second round, I'm going to do an increase in each of the stitches around. An increase means that you are going to do 2 single crochet in 1 stitch. So we are going to add more stitches and expand this little circle right here. And at the end of the second round, you will have 12 stitches. I already have a tutorial on how to do basic stitches, so please check it out if you are unfamiliar with the terms or what I'm saying. But I'm still gonna show you guys now. Now I'm going to make an increase in the first stitch. Insert your hook into that first stitch, yarn over, pull yarn through. We have 2 loops on the hook, yarn over and pull yarn through both loops, and this is 1 single crochet. We will make 1 more single crochet into that same stitch right here, yarn over and pull yarn through, yarn over and pull yarn through both loops on the hook, and we now have an increase, and you can see it looks like a little V. We are going to do 5 more of that increase. This is the second increase. Third increase. Fourth increase. Fifth increase. And this is our last stitch, which is where the tail ends. And 6th increase. Pull the tail so that the little hole in the middle will close up. And I will add the stitch marker at the end of this round. I like to use a different piece of yarn in different color so that it's just easier for me to work this way. If you are unsure of whether you are doing correctly or not, you can always count. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that's 12 stitches for the second round. For the third round, I'm going to do 1 single crochet in the first stitch, which is this one right here, and 1 increase in the second stitch. And I will repeat the process until I reach the marker. So that means 1 single crochet in the third, 1 increase in the fourth, 1 single crochet in the fifth, 1 increase in the sixth, and just do that until the end of the marker. So 1 single crochet in the first stitch, an increase in the second stitch, 1, 2, that's an increase. Repeat the process until you reach your marker. 1 single crochet in the third, 1 increase in the fourth, 1, 2. Okay, just repeat this until you reach your marker, and you should have 18 stitches for this round. For the next round, I'm going to do 1 single crochet in the first 2 stitches, so 1, 2, and 1 increase in the third stitch, which is this one right here. So 1 single crochet in the first stitch, 1 single crochet in the second stitch, an increase in the third stitch, 1, 2. Repeat the process until you reach your marker, and you should have 24 stitches for this round. For the next row, I'm going to do 1 single crochet in the first 3 stitches and an increase in the fourth stitch, this one right here. So 1 single crochet in the first stitch, 1 single crochet in the second stitch, 1 single crochet in the third stitch, and 1 single and 1 increase in the fourth stitch. Repeat the process until you reach your marker, and you will have 30 stitches for this round. For the next round, you can follow the pattern stating that 1 single crochet in the next 4 stitches and then an increase in the 5th stitch, and just keep pulling on the pattern. There's nothing wrong with the pattern, but you can see that the circle starts to look like a hexagon, and there's nothing wrong with it. After stuffing, this is not very visible, but I like to make a perfect round circle, not a hexagon-y circle like this. So what I like to do is that I will break down the initial stitches, initial single crochet stitches, into 2 even numbers. For example, for 4 single crochet and then an increase, I'm going to break it down into 2 and 2. So I'm gonna start 2 single crochet at the beginning round and 2 single crochet at the end of the round. So instead of going 4 and increase, I'm going to go with 2 increase, and I will follow the pattern normally. 4 increase, 4 increase, 4 increase, 4 increase, and you repeat that several times until you reach this stitch right here. This is where your last increase will be, and you will have 2 spare single crochets right here where your marker places, and this is where you will do 2 single crochets, because earlier you only crochet 1 single crochet in the first 2 stitches. We are missing 2 single crochets, and those 2 single crochets is gonna be for the last 2 stitches at the end of the round. When you do this, the increase stitch will be placed at different places. So you can see when you follow the pattern, the increased stitches will end right here, and it will go further if you increase it further, and it will create a visible hexagon. But when you break that number down, your increased stitch will be placed right here. It will be at different position, so your circle will not like increase following that direction, but it will change direction, so the circle will look rounder. And I only break down the pattern for those even beginning number of stitches. For example, from 4 SC 1 increase, 6 SC 1 increase, and if I go on further, 8 SC 1 increase, 10 SC 1 increase, I will break that even number down because that is easier. You can break down the odd number stitches, but it's just more troublesome to remember how many stitches you have done, so I prefer to do the even number of stitches. Let me just demonstrate. So this round, you can follow the pattern. It states 1 single crochet in the first 4 stitches and then an increase in the 5th stitch, but now I'm going to break that down into 2 increase and then the last 2 stitches at the end of the round. So I'm gonna go 1 single crochet in the first 2 stitches and then an increase in the 3rd stitch. So 1 single crochet in the first stitch, 1 single crochet in the 2nd stitch, and an increase in the 3rd stitch. Now for the next couple of process, I'm gonna go 1 single crochet in the next 4 stitches and then an increase in the 5th stitch normally. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and an increase in the next stitch. 1, 2. That's an increase, and I will repeat the process. 1 single crochet in the next 4 stitches, an increase, 1 single crochet in the next 4 stitches, an increase, until I only have 2 stitches left. 1, 2, 3, 4, an increase, 1, 2, 3, 4, an increase, 1, 2, 3, 4, an increase, 1, 2, 3, 4, an increase. Okay, so I repeated the process 5 more times, so I have 6 increases. I mentioned about the number of increases in my how to read amigurumi patterns tutorial, so you can check that out, what I'm saying if you don't understand. But I have 1 increase right here, 2nd increase, 3rd increase, 4th increase, 5th increase, and 6th increase. So I have 6 increase, and they are complete with the number added for this round. And you can see that there are 2 stitches left, and these 2 I'm gonna do 1 single crochet in each of the stitches until I reach the marker. So you can see that this is the first 2 stitches that we did at the beginning of the round, and this is an increase, our first increase of this row, and this is our last 2 single crochets because we are missing 2 single crochet right here. And I don't know if you can tell, but the circle still looks hexagony, but it's less visible, and when you go on further, this shape will change a little bit more and will be less hexagony visibly. At the end of this round, we will have 36 stitches. So for the next row, I'm going to do normally, no breakdown stitches or whatsoever. I'm gonna do 1 single crochet in the first 5 stitches, 1 2 3 4 5, and an increase in the 6th stitch. So 1 2 3 4 5, an increase in the 6th stitch. Repeat the process until you reach your marker, and you should have 42 stitches for this round. For the next round, I'm gonna do 1 single crochet in each of the stitches around, so I'm not going to add any more stitches, and at the end of this round you should still have 42 stitches. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to change color. I actually just filmed a how to change colors tutorial, but I'm gonna explain. I actually just filmed a how to change color videos, and you can watch the videos for a little bit more in depth, but I'm gonna still re-explain everything in this video. So I reached this stitch right here. This is a stitch marker. I have not completed the row, still 1 more single crochet to do, but because we are going to change color, so I'm going to do preparation first. This is the second color that I'm going to change to. This is a baby pink, so I'm going to change from purple to baby pink, and I'm going to create a slip knot. Push your yarn towards you, twist it 1 time, hold the intersection point right here, yarn over and pull the yarn through the loop, and you just created a slip knot. It's easy as that. So now the stitch marker is where the row ends, right? So now I'm going to remove that stitch marker and crochet into that last stitch of the row. So do a incomplete single crochet. So insert your hook into both loops, yarn over and pull the yarn through. Instead of yarn over and pull the yarn through both loops, that's a normal purple single crochet. I'm going to insert the pink yarn onto my hook, and I'm holding the pink yarn. I'm not holding the purple yarn anymore. I'm holding the new color, and pull through both loops like that, and you see that the color is changed to purple. And I'm gonna pull the purple yarn to tighten the stitch. This is a short end tail, just hide that in the back. You can use your finger to hold the yarn so that it will not move around. So now for the next row, the pattern said that I'm going to do 6 single crochet and then an increase, but I'm going to break that down like I did earlier with 4 single crochet. I'm going to break that 6 single crochet down into 3 at the beginning of the row and 3 at the end of the row. So 1 single crochet in the first 3 stitches and then an increase, and just follow the pattern normally. 6 single crochet, an increase, 6 single crochet, an increase, and until you reach the end of the row you will have 3 single crochet left. But because now we change color to pink, and we are going to do it a little bit differently, and it's a little bit more confusing, so bear with me. Instead of going one single crochet, this is one single crochet like you normally do, right? And you see that the color changed very abruptly part, and that doesn't create like a subtle change in colors. It looks very visible. So what I like to do is that I would make a slip stitch into the first stitch of the row, and I will follow the pattern. So for example, this is the first single crochet, so we will create 2 more single crochet and then an increase in the fourth stitch. So 1, 2, 3. We will come back at this slip stitch later, but just follow me and do what I am doing. An increase in the fourth stitch. So that's the breakdown for the first course of the first increase. Just follow the pattern and create normally. So 1 single crochet in the next 6 stitches and then an increase in the 7th stitch, and repeat that until you have 3 purple stitches left. So 1 single crochet in the next 6 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. An increase in the 7th stitch, and just repeat that 4 more times, 4 more increases pattern.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, increase. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, increase. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, increase. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
6 increase. So this is our last increase stitches, and you see that we have 3 stitches left behind, and we will crochet 1 single crochet in the 3 stitches normally. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so normally this should be the last stitch of our current row, right? But because we did a slip stitch earlier, and you can see that the size it's not normal, so what I'm gonna do is that I will insert my hook through that slip stitch, and I will create a single crochet. So pull the yarn through that slip stitch, pull the yarn up equally to your previous stitch right here, and just pull the yarn through both loops. So you can see that the color changes not too abruptly as before. It is a little bit more connected. This method is not perfect though. There's other tutorials, other methods that will create seamless changing colors, which means you will not see this color changing part right here. But that method will be more time consuming. It's worth it, but it's more time consuming. But for me, I don't want to spend too much time changing colors, because that involved with cutting the yarn, threading the yarn and all that, and I prefer this way more. It works for me. It's not too, what should I say, this works best for me. I don't have to spend too much time changing colors and the results still look decent. not too abruptly like before. It looks decent, but of course this is not as perfect as the seamless method, but this just works for me. But of course, if you prefer other methods, you can do that, but this is just my personal preference. So now when you crochet into that slip stitch, this is your new last stitch of the row, because this is where we end. Normally this is your last stitch of the row, but because we have to deal with that slip stitch earlier, so we have to crochet into the slip stitch to create a equal height to your current row. So this is your new last stitch of the row. So now you just follow the pattern normally. You don't put the idea of last stitch or first stitch into your mind now. Just know that this is your new marker, your new place for your marker, and work normally. For the next row, I'm gonna do 1 single crochet in the first 7 stitches and an increase in the 8th stitch. This is an odd number, so I'm not going to break down the yarn. Carefully seeing the first stitch of the row, because it's kind of hidden because of your last stitch, but it is right here. So carefully check and see where the first stitch is. This is the first stitch. So 1 single crochet in the first 7 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, an increase in the 8th stitch. 1, 2. Repeat the process until you reach your marker, and you should have 54 stitches for this row. For the next 6 rounds, we are going to do 1 single crochet in each of the stitches around. So we will not increase or add any more stitches for the next few rounds. Okay, so I finished crocheting 6 rounds. So the next round I'm gonna change to this 3rd color right here. It's a peach color, and I'm gonna do the same with the previous time. Create a slip knot, and this is the last stitch of the round, and I'm going to change color at that stitch. Pull the pink yarn to tighten the stitch. Hold the yarn at the back, and for the next 2 rounds, I'm gonna do 1 single crochet in each of the stitches again. So create a slip stitch for the first stitch. This later will be our last stitch of the row, and crocheting 1 single crochet in each of the stitches around. For the next round, I'm gonna do 1 single crochet in the first 7 stitches, and then a decrease in the next 2 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7 single crochets, and then a decrease. A decrease means you will combine 2 single crochets into 1 stitch. I have a tutorial on how to do decreases, so you can check that out if you are unfamiliar with the stitch, but I'm gonna demonstrate here for you as well. So insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over and pull the yarn through that stitch. Insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over into and pull the yarn through that stitch, and you can see that we have 3 loops on the hook, and we are going to yarn over and pull the yarn through all the 3 loops on the hook, and this is a decrease. We are going to repeat the process until we reach our marker right here. So that means 1 single crochet in the next 7 stitches and then a decrease in the next 2 stitches, and just do that until you reach your marker, and at the end of this round you should have 48 stitches. For the next 3 rounds we are going to do 1 single crochet in each of the stitches around, and we will still have 48 stitches. Okay, so I went ahead and finished 3 rounds with single crochets. I'm gonna place the marker. For the next round, I'm gonna do 1 single crochet in the first 6 stitches and then a decrease in the next 2 stitches. You can follow the pattern and do that, but I am going to break down the pattern into 3 single crochets at the beginning of the round and 3 single crochets at the end of the round, because I want to spread out the decreasing stitches so that it will not have like a very visible decreasing lines. Okay, so first is 1 single crochet in the next 3 stitches. Like I said, you don't have to break down the pattern. You can follow the pattern normally, single crochet 6 times and then an increase or a decrease. I personally like to do this because it's just my personal preference. You don't have to do it if you're a beginner and this is just a little bit too confusing for you. But if you are like you have experience in crocheting, then you can do this to improve your amigurumi and makes it look better. So I did 1 single crochet in the first 3 stitches and then a decrease in the next 2 stitches, and do the pattern normally. 1 single crochet in the next 6 stitches and then a decrease in the next 2 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. A decrease in the next 2 stitches. Repeat the process 4 more times, and trust me, you will have 3 stitches left until you reach your marker. Okay, so this is my 6th decrease stitch, and I have 3 stitches left, and I'm gonna do 1 single crochet in the last 3 stitches. For the next row, I'm gonna do 1 single crochet in each of the stitches around, and then I will change to a 3rd color yarn. So my 4th yarn color is this baby yellow right here, and then we're gonna change to baby yellow. Oh no, it's the same color with my stitch marker. Okay, so I changed to yellow, create a slip stitch into this next stitch, and that will be our last stitch of the current row. Okay, so for this row, I'm gonna do 1 single crochet in each of the stitches around, and at the end of the row, I'm still gonna have 42 stitches. Okay, place my stitch marker into this last stitch of the row. I changed my stitch marker to black because the yarn color now match my previous stitch marker. For the next row, I'm gonna do 1 single crochet in the first 5 stitches and then a decrease in the next 2 stitches. So 1 single crochet in the first 5 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A decrease in the next 2 stitches. Repeat this process until you reach your marker, and at the end of the row you should have 36 stitches. For the next row, I'm gonna do 1 single crochet in the first 4 stitches and then a decrease in the next 2 stitches. I'm gonna break down the number of stitches for this row because it's an even number. So 2 single crochet in the first 2 stitches, a decrease, 4 single crochet in the next 4 stitches, decrease, and repeat that until there are only 2 single crochet left, and we are going to do 1 single crochet in the last 2 stitches. So 1 single crochet in the first stitch, 1 single crochet in the second stitch, and then a decrease in the third and the fourth stitch, 1 single crochet in the next 4 stitches, and then a decrease in the next 2 stitches. Three, 4, and then a decrease. Repeat the process 4 more times until we only have 2 single crochet left behind. But first, I am going to insert in the safety eyes. Okay, so I eyeballed it, and 2 eyes are 9 to 10 stitches apart. It's up to you, and they are inserted in between round 8 and 9. And I'm gonna use my glue gun to secure the back. And wait for it to cool down. Okay, so when the eyes are cooled down, I flip the piece inside out and continue on crocheting. 1 single crochet in the next 4 stitches and then a decrease. So I completed the 6th decrease and also the last decrease for this row, and you see there are 2 stitches left, and we are going to do single crochet in the last 2 stitches. I'm gonna start stuffing this narwhal gradually as we are closing up our circle. Just put in a lot of stuffing. For the next rounds, I'm gonna do 1 single crochet in each of the stitches around for 2 rows, and at the end of the row, we're still gonna have 30 stitches. For the next row, I'm gonna do 1 single crochet in the first 3 stitches and then a decrease in the next 2 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, a decrease, 1, 2. Repeat the process until you reach your marker, and at the end of this row you should have 24 stitches. For the next row, I'm going to do 1 single crochet in the first 2 stitches and then a decrease in the next 2 stitches. I am going to split the number of stitches into 1 at the beginning and 1 stitch at the end. So 1 single crochet at the first stitch, a decrease, and 1 single crochet in the next 2 stitches, a decrease in the next 2 stitches, just repeat this process until you have 1 stitch left. I will stuff in some more as I'm closing up the amigurumi. For the next row, I'm going to do 1 single crochet in each of the stitches around. So I'm still going to have 18 stitches at the end of this row. And I'm going to change to the 5th color at the end of this row. Okay, so I went ahead and changed to baby blue and going to crochet a slip stitch. Basically, I'm gonna do what I showed you guys earlier. For this row, I'm gonna do 1 single crochet in the first stitch and then a decrease in the next 2 stitches. For example, this is a single crochet, and now I'm going to do a decrease. And just repeat 1 single crochet, 1 decrease normally until you completed all the yellow stitches. Insert into the slip stitch and crochet a higher single crochet. Cut out the yellow yarn and tie some knots. I'm gonna stuff in a little bit more. For the next few last rounds, I don't need a stitch marker anymore because I'm going to do decreases until I close up this circle. So you basically just crochet decreases around until there are only 6 stitches left in your circle. That's when we will finish off. Okay, so now there are only 6 stitches in this last row. I'm going to finish off by creating a slip stitch into the next stitch. Cut your yarn. You don't have to leave a long tail. And now we will close up this gap. Use your yarn needle. Thread your yarn. This is how I like to close up my amigurumi. I will insert the needle through the front loop of the stitch, and I will go that all around. And then just take your yarn and pull this really tight, and you see that the gap is already closed up. And I like to do is that I will just insert back into the center of that closed gap and just thread our yarn through all the way to the front. And I use my yarn needle to help shape the amigurumi. So that's how the body looks like. So what I like to do is that this is like the flat bottom of the narwhal, so I will put it to the flat surface and kind of push it down so that this bottom will flatten out a little bit. We'll shape that. You see that it helps to create more on a domer size on top and flatter at the bottom. So yeah, we finished the body and we will move on to the tail. I'm gonna start with the same 5th color for the tail. To begin with the tail, start with 6 crochet in the magic ring. Now I'm gonna do 1 increase in each of the stitches around. So we will have 12 stitches for the second row. For the next row, I'm gonna do 1 crochet in the first 3 stitches and then an increase in the 4th stitch. So 1 crochet in the first 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3, an increase in the 4th stitch. Repeat the process until you reach your marker. At the end of this row, you should have 16 stitches. For the next 2 rounds, we are going to do 1 crochet in each of the stitches around. Okay, so I finished 2 rounds with single crochets. We are going to chain up 1 time and cut the yarn. Okay, so this is half of the tail. We will make another one, so just repeat the process, making another piece like this, but do not chain 1 and cut the yarn because we will connect the 2 tails together. Okay, so I finished the second piece, and do not chain 1 and cut your yarn. Insert into the last stitch a stitch marker, and we will start to join the 2 pieces together. Each of these has 15 stitches. I was mistaken earlier saying 16, but they actually only have 15. So when you join these 2 together, we are going to crochet 1 crochet in each of the stitches, and we will have 30 stitches after connecting the 2 pieces, and I will show you how to do that. So instead of going into the first stitch of your current piece, we are going to crochet into the other piece. So this should be your first stitch. This is your last stitch where there's a chain 1 on top. So this should be your first stitch of that row, and we will crochet 1 single crochet in each of the stitches normally. So insert in your hook into the first stitch. Hold your yarn in a way that you are comfortable with. There's no method or whatsoever. Pull the yarn tight so that the loop would not be too loose, and crochet a single crochet. Hold the 2 pieces while you're crocheting So you can see that the two pieces now connected together with this one single crochet, and we will go one single crochet in each of the stitches around until we reach this last stitch right here, and I will show you how to connect on the other side. So one single crochet, one single crochet. The easiest way for you to know when to stop at the current row, because sometimes it's hard to see where is the last stitch of the row. You just have to count the number of stitches. Like I said, each of these pieces has 15 stitches, so we created 3 single crochet already. So 4,
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14,
and 15. So we completed our single crochets on one piece. Now we will connect onto the other piece. So look carefully, this is where we place our stitch marker. So this is our last stitch of the second piece. This is the first and this is the second, and the stitch right here, this stitch right here should be your first stitch that we will start crocheting into. So insert your hook into that first stitch of the second piece, crochet a single crochet, and you can see that we just join the two pieces together with another single crochet. I know there's a hole right here, but we will sew and close up this hole later on, so don't worry. And we will crochet one single crochet in each of the stitches until we reach our marker, which is right here. Just count the number of stitches while you are crocheting. It's just easier that way to know where the last stitch is if you are still confused. So this is 1,
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14,
and 15 is right into our stitch marker. 15. So just place a stitch marker into that last stitch. Okay, so the two pieces are now connected and looking like that. You can go and count, but the number of stitches should be 30 stitches at the end of this row. Okay, so the next row, I'm going to do one single crochet in the first 6 stitches and then a decrease in the next 2 stitches. If you don't know where the first stitch is, like I said, you can always count back. So the last stitch where you put your stitch marker should be your 30th stitch, and just count back until you know where the first stitch is, which is this one right here. Because I already know, so I'm not going to count, but if anyone who's still confused, you can do that. So one single crochet in the first 6 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, a decrease into the next 2 stitches. Just repeat the process until you reach your marker. Okay, so I crocheted the process 3 times, so I have 3 decreases right here, 1, 2, and 3, and you can see there are only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches left until you reach your marker, which is not enough for a whole 6 SC1 decrease. So what I'm going to do is that I am going to crochet 1 single crochet in the next 3 stitches and then a decrease in the last 2 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, a decrease. For the next row, I'm going to do 1 single crochet in the first 5 stitches and then a decrease in the next 2 stitches. Do that 3 times and then do 1 single crochet in the next 2 stitches and then a decrease. I will show you guys why I did that. So 1 single crochet in the first 5 stitches.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a decrease. Repeat this 2 more times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, decrease. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, decrease.
And you see that there are only 4 stitches left, which is not enough to make 5 SC1 decrease. So I'm gonna do 1 single crochet in the next 2 stitches and then a decrease in the last 2 stitches. So 1, 2, a decrease. Okay, so you can see that it starts to look like this. What I'm gonna do is that I am going to sew to close out this hole in the middle. Earlier I told you to finish off and cut out a long piece to sew is for this purpose. So just sew to close up the gap. Insert your yarn back into the inside. And I'm going to tie knots. Okay, so you can see that the hole in the middle is now closed. We will continue on crocheting. This is the last row for the tail. Okay, so we are going to do 1 single crochet in the first 3 stitches and then a decrease in the next 2 stitches. Repeat this 3 more times and just crochet 1 single crochet in the last stitch. Okay, so we finished the tail. Create a slip stitch into the next stitch and cut the yarn to finish off. Remember to leave a long tail for sewing. Stuff this tail. Okay, so after stuffing it should look like this, and we will sew on to the last few blue rounds of the body and just pin it down and sew it like that, and it should look something like this. Okay, moving on to the fins, we are going to start with 6 crochets in the magic ring. For the next row, I am going to do an increase in each of the stitches around. So at the end of this row, you should have 12 stitches. For the next row, I'm going to do 1 single crochet in each of the stitches around. So we will not add any more stitches to this row, and you will still have 12 stitches at the end of this row. For the next row, I'm gonna do 1 single crochet in the first 3 stitches and then an increase in the 4th stitch. So 1 single crochet in the first 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, an increase in the 4th stitch. Repeat the process until you reach your marker. For the next 2 rounds, I'm gonna do 1 single crochet in each of the stitches around. We will not add any more stitches, and at the end of the 2 rounds, you should have 15 stitches. Slip stitch into the next stitch to finish off and cut the yarn, leave a long tail for sewing. Repeat the process and create another fin, and then just sew onto the body. To begin with the horn, start with 6 single crochet in the magic ring, like this. Since I'm using white, it's a little bit hard to show you guys the stitches, but of course you can always use different colors for the horn, and you can find the pattern in the file or on the screen. For the next row, I'm going to do 1 single crochet in each of the stitches around. So we are not going to increase for this row. The last stitch is always difficult to insert your hook, but just be patient and you can do it. Pull the tail so that the circle will close tightly. Use the scissors to flip this piece inside out. Insert in a stitch marker. Okay, for the next row, I am going to do 1 single crochet in the first 2 stitches and an increase in the 3rd stitch. So 1 single crochet in the first stitch, 1 single crochet in the 2nd stitch, 2, and an increase in the 3rd stitch. This is the 3rd stitch, so do 2 single crochet in this 1 stitch, 1, do 1 more in the same stitch, 2, and we have an increase. Repeat the process until you reach your marker. For the next row, I am going to do 1 single crochet in each of the stitches around. So we are not going to add any more stitches to this row. For the next row, I'm going to do 1 single crochet in the first 3 stitches and an increase in the 4th stitch. So 1 in the first, 1 single crochet in the second, and 1 single crochet in the third, and then an increase in the 4th stitch. 1, 2. Repeat the process until you reach your marker. For the next row, I'm going to do 1 single crochet in each of the stitches around, so we are not going to increase stitches. For the next row, I'm going to do 1 single crochet in the first 4 stitches and then an increase in the 5th stitch. In order to make the circle rounder and not hexagony, I am going to split the first 4 stitches into 2 stitches and 2 stitches. So 1 single crochet in the first stitch, 1 single crochet in the second stitch, an increase in the 3rd stitch, now we are going to do 1 single crochet in the next 4 stitches, an increase in the 5th stitch until there are only 2 stitches left. So 1 single crochet in the next 4 stitches,
3, 4, an increase in the next stitch.
And you can see that there are only 2 stitches left where the marker is. This is because we split the first 4 stitches, so we only have 2 stitches left. So this is 1, 2 stitches increase here, and this is the 3, 4 stitches of this first increase. For the next row, I'm going to do 1 single crochet in each of the stitches around. For the next row, we are going to do 1 single crochet in the first 5 stitches and then an increase in the 6th stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, an increase in the 6th stitch. Repeat the process until you reach your marker. For the next row, I'm going to do 1 single crochet in the first 6 stitches and then an increase in the 7th stitch. You can follow that pattern and crochet, but I'm going to split the first 6 stitches into 3 stitches at the beginning and 3 stitches at the end. For the last row of the horn, I am going to do 1 single crochet in each of the stitches around. Finish off by making a slip stitch into the next stitch. Cut your yarn and leave a long tail for sewing. Okay, so I pinned down the horn facing upward like this. So the bottom right here is between row 2 and 3, and the top up here is between row 3 and 4. And now I'm gonna start sewing on the horn. Now we will make the blushes. Start with 4 single crochet in the magic ring. For the second row, we are going to do an increase in each of the stitches around, and you should end it up with 8 single crochets at the end of this round. Slip stitch into the first stitch to finish off. And now cut the yarn and leave a long tail for sewing. After sewing on the blushes, they should look like this. I also use black yarn to sew on a mouth like so to make it cuter. And that's it. Congratulations, you just finished making a Narwhal Amigurumi. If you stick around to this part of the video, thank you so much. I cannot tell you how thankful I am, how grateful I am for you guys to spend time of your day watching my tutorial and even use my tutorial to crochet. It's just amazing. You guys are awesome. Yeah, so you can, again, the green pattern is on my Tumblr, Ravelry and Craftsy, so you can go to those websites and get the pattern. It's a long tutorial, I know. I tried to make it as short as possible, but I also wanted to make it as detailed as I could so that for beginners, you guys can follow step by step. Again, please check out my Amigurumi 101 series if there's any part of the tutorial that you are confused. Thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you guys in my next video. Bye bye.